And we're back. I'm here with Brian, Sarah, Hallie.
Hi.
Woo!
Hello.
Now, before we started, Sarah Lazarus turned to all of us and said, you ever have a dream that just fucks up your whole day? How you doing?
Not great.
But you don't remember the dream?
No.
Not one detail?
Just the feeling when I woke up.
Oh, okay.
Describe the feeling.
Terrible. Like everything is wrong.
Oh,
Wow. Maybe you're still dreaming.
That would suck. This is my dream that I have to wake up and come do this.
It's your nightmare.
Now I feel bad. I had a dream about something called, in the dream, the Sophic token. And the Sophic token is a tiny blue elephant. And if you stare into its eyes, you become attracted to women.
That is what happened to me.
Is that what happened to you?
Yeah,
You
I was at like a knick-knack shop. There was like an old wise
the
man.
elephant table.
Yeah, I was like, what's this?
Hey, can I borrow that token sometime?
Yeah, but it was too, I wouldn't buy it. You just look at it once. What are you going to buy?
man.
You look at it over and over again?
Whoa.
You only need the one.
Right, that's why, yeah. It's
You
hard to
pass
make.
it on.
It's
Need
terrible
some kind of
business.
token library.
Yeah.
Ooh.
In my dream, it was a horror movie, but in real life, it's a cool thing people would pay a lot of money to access.
It's like, in real life, it's just being bisexual.
That's cool.
My house is covered in tokens.
Area bisexual Brian Semmel.
I'm in the area, baby.
I'm in your area.
All right, let's get into it. What a weekday. Vivek Ramaswamy, or what happens when an end-user license agreement becomes a person, appeared to broadcast himself taking a pee after he forgot to mute his mic during an X-Space conversation with Elon Musk, Alex Jones, Andrew Tate, Matt Gaetz, and other luminaries with over 100,000 listeners.
What the hell did I do? Kill them all. Of course.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's it. I'm sorry. Here it is.
I'm super pro-human, and I mean all humans. Humans in America, humans in
Somebody's
Africa,
got their thing
Asia,
open.
and everywhere
Somebody's
else.
got their phone open in the bathroom.
Yeah, that's Vivek. Vivek, that's your phone, Vivek. I'm not able to mute you. Vivek. Perfect. Go ahead, Elon.
Sorry about that.
So, well, I hope you feel better.
I feel great. Thank you. Sorry about that, guys.
Yuck. There's something about the forced jocularity of the whole thing that makes me really uncomfortable.
It's funny Elon can't mute him. Like, I can mute anyone on a Zoom that I own.
But this is on X. I don't think anything works.
Nothing works.
I'd rather hear Vivek Ramaswamy pee than hear Elon Musk talk. Right? Like, if that was just pissing, that would be way better.
Yeah, I do like the thing that it interrupted was,
Yes.
I'm pro-human, all humans
If you
in America.
if you're saying that, no, you aren't. Like, I'll tell you that right now. It's like, that's not a human thing to say.
It's, the saying I'm pro-human is like, it's a defensive and kind of like pious response to a fair criticism that he's not addressing. You know, it's like, if you have your kind of provincial views of what I'm doing, which is that it is perhaps bad to turn Twitter back into a sewer where Alex Jones and Matt Gaetz and all these freaks run rampant and no one else really feels welcome or safe or has any desire to be there. But I'm doing it because I'm pro-human.
Well, it's like when he said all the CEOs that stopped advertising on X would hear about it from the planet Earth.
Yeah, from the planet
What does
Earth.
that mean?
It's like, I'm not sure they're going to call.
I don't think they are, yeah.
There's also in which calling people humans is like the tech guy version of calling women females. Just
Yes.
a little bit off.
Yeah, you're like,
Yeah.
what are you trying to say? What does that mean?
It would have been funny if, like, Elon was like, I'm pro-human, and Alex Jones was like, I'm not.
Yeah, that'd been funny.
That would have been funny.
Would have been real funny. Hey, Brian, you're right. That would have been hilarious. The piss call marked a special event, Elon Musk's decision to allow right-wing conspiracy theorist Alex Jones back onto his personal social media platform. And I, for one, am happy to hear it. Before this, if you wanted to hear what Alex Jones had to say, you had to hold a toilet up to your ear like a seashell. On Thursday, a woman in Texas named Kate Cox sued the state to obtain an abortion after learning that her fetus had a fatal genetic condition. Because when something's gone wrong in your pregnancy, there should only be one thing on your mind, and that's healing. I'm sorry, I misspoke. And that's debating a right-wing attorney general. The Texas abortion ban says abortions can be performed in cases where the patient's life would be threatened. But Cox fell short of that standard. Carrying the fetus to term probably wouldn't kill her, but it could render her unable to have more children. What's the point of treating women like baby factories if you don't even let them keep the baby machines in good working order? What's the factory supposed to do now? Get turned into lofts? No one can even afford those. I've lost control of this. A Texas judge subsequently granted a temporary restraining order to allow Cox to obtain an abortion, but late Friday, the Texas Supreme Court blocked that ruling. Cox, unable to wait any longer, fled Texas to seek care. And on Monday, the Texas Supreme Court officially ruled against her. The reason, the court explained, is that Cox didn't need a court order to qualify for an abortion. She simply needed to be at risk of death. In other words, if you live in Texas and you think you might want to get an abortion, you have to buy a Cybertruck and slam a Panera lemonade. The logic of this ruling is wild. If you are alive enough to ask for help, you're not dead enough to need it. Meanwhile, jealous of how cool Texas has become, Missouri Republicans are proposing that women who seek abortion care be charged with murder. You know what they say? Missouri loves company. The company in this case is run by Dog the Bounty Hunter, and he makes money chasing women down on his ATVs as they flee across the border. As women across the country face the grim legal body horror reality of life under Republican rule, an unfolding case in Ohio has drawn new attention. Police in Warren County charged a woman named Brittany Watts with a felony after she miscarried at 22 weeks. At 21 weeks, she was told by a doctor that her pregnancy was not viable and she would miscarry. So why was she charged? Well, she experienced an awful but common occurrence. She miscarried while on the toilet. She then went to the hospital where she experienced life-threatening complications. Police then removed the toilet from her home, chiseled it open in order to find the remains of her non-viable fetus, and charged Watts with desecrating a corpse. "This is why I became a cop," said a cop who calls women females and has a thin blue line flag on his extremely unsuccessful Hinge profile. Man, this is a tough week for news. I gotta say,
baby.
comedy, we're doing it.
Tough country.
Tough country.
It makes me really fucking mad.
It makes you really mad.
Makes me really fucking mad.
Makes you really mad. Mad enough to vote for Joe Biden? Let's keep going. I have to ask, what was she... Twice. I have to ask, what was she supposed to do? Even if Watts overcame her blood loss and trauma, crouched down, and managed to find the fetal remains, what then? Bring a fetus into the hospital and be like, "One fetus funeral, please"? If you, like me, are truly baffled, maybe Warren Municipal Court Judge Terry Ivanchek can tell you why he sent this to a grand jury. His work phone number is 330-841-2525.
That these women have to go to court and address these fucking monsters as your honor. Like, I would, like, break the fuck down. Like, I want to lunge at their little scrawny... I'm really mad. Sorry.
What's the problem with like this used to like a problem with like every group in this country where it's like there are people who could hear these details and are so horrified to be like, this shouldn't happen, and there are people who could hear this and are so completely unmoved. And it's like, well, how do you bridge that gap? The idea that you could be a judge and hear these details and be like, yes, this is a matter for the courts. I don't know. It's hard to imagine reaching, like, how do you reach that person who's already at that point?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we need to reach those people because these issues, these are 80-20, 90-10 issues. Like, this is not, Republicans are not in favor of this.
Yeah.
The vast majority of Republicans are not in favor of this. The trick is all the Republicans who were fighting so hard to overturn Roe v. Wade called all the experts and lawyers and providers and protesters like hysterical, like hyperbolic when they said this is what the future would be. Then it happens, and then they just hope everybody acclimatizes to living under these conditions, that it goes from unacceptable, impossible, imaginary to normal before we have a chance to fight back.
On the other hand, we're going to usher in a new era of abortion jokes just because that's literally going to be everything in the news all the time.
Yay. Hey, yeah, maybe. Hey, Lazarus, I wonder why you're having bad dreams.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
Special counsel Jack Smith asked the Supreme Court to fast-track a ruling on Donald Trump's claim that he's immune from prosecution as a former president. Pretty cocky to ask Clarence Thomas to rush to judgment. His opinions suck balls when he takes his sweet-ass time. And Samuel Alito has a whole deliberate system to reach his conclusions. He doesn't even like to start typing until he's just about to lose consciousness because of how painful the hooks have become. Wrote Smith, this case presents a fundamental question at the heart of our democracy, whether a former president is absolutely immune from federal prosecution for crimes committed while in office. That's prosecutor speak for Listen, you right-wing legal freaks, I know you got into this game to chain women to gurneys and return coal to its rightful place in the hearths of public school chapels, but you can't believe that the president is a god king unbound by our laws, right? Right?
Right.
On the other hand, the justices deciding this question will be getting a ride from said former president to a party on Epstein's Island. No, Epstein's not there anymore. It's owned by another rich maniac who once called Epstein a judgy prude. That guy sounds like a real freak. The U.S. on Friday vetoed a UN resolution calling for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza, which was backed by almost all other Security Council members. And sure, this may be functionally the same as vetoing a Change.org petition, but it looks much worse. There are 15 members of the UN Security Council, and the final vote was 13-1. The United Kingdom abstained, taking the same moral stance on a ceasefire as you do on a breadbasket. Bernie Sanders came out against a permanent ceasefire on Face the Nation Sunday after publicly supporting a humanitarian pause.
I don't know how you could have a permanent ceasefire with Hamas, who has said before October 7th and after October 7th that they want to destroy Israel. They want a permanent war. I don't know how you have a permanent ceasefire with an attitude like that.
He has a serious point about how a ceasefire can't be one-sided, but then he phrased it like ceasefire with that attitude, which is regrettably hilarious. President Biden's approval rating for his handling of the Israel-Hamas conflict has declined slightly since October, with more than a third of Democrats saying Biden is showing too much support for Israel, and more than 75% of Republicans say Biden is showing too much support for his son. At Monday's White House Hanukkah party, President Biden told the attendees, "Were there no Israel, there wouldn't be a Jew in the world that is safe." Added Biden in an ill-advised ad-lib. Except Doug, of course. I'd tell you I'd hide that guy in my attic in a heartbeat. Quiet as a mouse, that Doug, and he doesn't eat much either. Love that guy. He'll sneak up on you, Doug will. Not saying Jews are sneaky. Oh, geez. This is a news cycle. It's a news cycle. It's happening. Last week, the presidents of Harvard, MIT, and the University of Pennsylvania testified before Congress about how they are protecting their students from anti-Semitism. And sure, this may have looked like a crass opportunity for Republicans who tolerate raving anti-Semites in their own ranks to attack the elite universities they've been railing against for years, but that's because you're too cynical. During the hearing, MAGA henchwoman Elise Stefanik asked each president if calling for the genocide of Jews would hypothetically violate the college's code of conduct. It's like watching Wile E. Coyote paint a tunnel on a wall, and all the university presidents are there watching him paint it, and then each of them runs full speed directly into the wall. In one viral clip, Stefanik grilled Harvard President Claudine Gay on the pro-Palestinian protesters calling for intifada revolution, which Stefanik says is tantamount to calling for the genocide of Jewish people.
You are president of Harvard, so I assume you're familiar with the term intifada, correct?
I've heard that term, yes.
And you understand that the use of the term intifada in the context of the Israeli-Arab conflict is indeed a call for violent armed resistance against the state of Israel, including violence against civilians and the genocide of Jews. Are you aware of that?
That type of hateful speech is personally abhorrent to me.
In Arabic, intifada means struggle, but it's also a word closely and painfully associated with suicide bombings that took place during the second intifada in the early 2000s. I'm just grateful we have Elise Stefanik to guide us through these nuances. Each president in turn attempted to provide an answer that threaded the needle between protecting free speech on campus and responding to real-world anti-Semitic threats, but all ended up seeming evasive and lawyerly, which Stefanik exploited. Nerds, I understand you don't want to have to go talk to Congress. By the way, none of you had to
They
go.
didn't have to.
You didn't have to fucking go.
They were so stupid.
They just drove halfway across the fucking country to get smacked in the face.
And do it so they were so condescending while they do it. She was like, "Yeah, I know what intifada means. Anyway, I'm gonna resign this week." Like these stupid.
Really bad decision. Really bad decision.
If you see Elise Stefanik in a party, you should leave. You shouldn't engage with her in a battle of wills, because unfortunately, even that little clip, it's over. Like, once she's walked you up to that, and you were not prepared for Elise Stefanik, what could you do? I mean, watching it, you're like, okay, well, then what was even the point of this?
Yeah, first of all, they'd been there for hours, and yes, second of all, it really is a when did you stop beating your wife situation. There's no, once you're at the point where you're like negotiating the finer points of whether someone has called for genocide, you're not winning, you know?
Yeah. And the headline, like, gay hates Jews. Like, that's optimal.
That's not what you want.
No.
Is that?
Now,
that's not the headline. What'd you say?
For a number of reasons.
Yeah, for a number. Yeah, gays hate Jews. Gay hates Jews.
Yeah, bad for gays everywhere.
If you're going to voluntarily sit for a hearing like this, prepare some talking points, take a few deep breaths, and try not to step on your dick so hard we're forced to cede moral ground to Elise Stefanik, a maniac who echoed great replacement theory and once attacked Biden for providing formula to immigrant babies. Remember that? Remember when that was her problem? Because it was expensive. In her attempt to answer, Penn President Liz McGill replied, "It's a context-dependent decision. And if there's anything Americans who only read headlines with your face under the word genocide understand, it's context." Harvard's president, Claudine Gay, said that when speech crosses into conduct, that violates our policies. So we can all agree that an active genocide against Jews on campus would be against the rules in the student handbook. So that's a place to start from. That's a place from which to build.
Yeah.
I tried to read the handbook, and they made it a little harder to find.
Wait, what do you mean?
I went to when you click on the link now to find the Harvard handbook, there's nothing on that page, and I feel like they're like, take that down.
Wow, the same as the Bin Laden letter.
Actually, the code of conduct is just the Bin Laden letter.
Yeah.
now.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah.
I've already read it.
Yeah. MIT President Sally Kornbluth said she hadn't heard any such calls on her college's campus, but that such rhetoric would be investigated as harassment if pervasive and severe. But a casual kill the Jews in between classes. Come on, it's college. People are experimenting. Once again, I would rather wax my eyebrows off than find myself aligned with Elise fucking Stefanik. Roughly 700 members of Harvard's faculty signed letters supporting President Claudine Gay, calling the pressure on her to resign politically motivated, while another letter signed by Harvard students and alumni expressed no confidence in Gay's leadership. Gay news.
Gay news.
Gay news.
The thing about it, too, is it's like, this was a trap. It wasn't even a well-laid trap. Like, the trap wasn't even finished being built.
It's a very crude trap.
It's a crude trap.
It has the word trap right on there.
Yeah, there weren't a lot of leaves covering the mechanism.
Where it's the bear trap with a pie on top.
Yeah.
It's like, ooh, but the pie. And what's the pie? The pie is, I prove Elise Stefanik wrong.
I think that was the pie. I think I think they were all like, we could wipe the floor with this woman. We're going to crush it. It's going to be like a great day for the public humanities and higher education. And they just like,
I do think though, like, yeah, but I do think that there was a confusing part of this, which is, if you're a college president, if you're dealing with campus politics, you've spent the last decade dealing with unfair attacks that your college is not open to intellectual disagreement or debate, and that free speech is no longer safe on campus. And they didn't realize, or they didn't fully countenance, that actually none of these people care about free speech.
Right.
This was a debate where they were trying to prove that you were too solicitous, too permissive of free speech. And so, because if you go look at like the Harvard Student Handbook, which I did, it says somewhere in there now something like speech that you might not like, that you might find concerning or distressing, isn't necessarily against the rules, something like that. And like, there has been a debate about that kind of thing. And Republicans have spun up cases where like that conservative judge was harangued, or other conservatives have gone to bait, like, right-wing internet trolls have gone to campuses to bait student protesters to get physical or make them feel unsafe, whatever. And so like that is the context, which is Republicans trying to say, oh, if you say anything that runs counter to being pro-trans, pro-gay, critical race theory, whatever thing they're focused on, then you're a bigot and it's not allowed. But you can be an anti-Semite. You can say whatever you want about Jews because you don't care about Jews, because you think of you're anti-Semitic, or you've allowed anti-Zionism to allow you to welcome anti-Semitism on campus. The other trap is they want to equate any legitimate or even illegitimate protest of Israel as being anti-Semitic, right? Like that's part of this too, because Republicans just passed a resolution through the House that had a bunch of examples of terrible anti-Semitism unfolding in the United States and around the world. And then at the very bottom of that resolution, it says, we resolve that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. And that one line is enough to make it, I think correctly, anathema to a lot of progressives and Democrats and I think intellectually honest people who may find the view that Israel doesn't have a right to exist abhorrent, might find the anti-Zionist view historically unfounded or unfair or biased or whatever. I think I'm probably one of those people, but who also believes it is possible to not support Israel while not being anti-Semitic. And they all were like, oh, that's what she's trying to do. Jump. I'm in.
It's just a fundamental, like, the unfortunate part that we're always constantly going to be in is like whatever topic it is, we care, and Republicans are only viewing it as a way to put it into their mechanism to get power. Like, so it's like this was not there. To assume good faith in any part of this was the initial mistake, and then to come there and not understand, like you said, a crude trap, not understand that like Elise Stefanik doesn't care about any of this. So why are you putting yourself in front of her, knowing what she has said in the past, knowing what kind of person she is? She's just trying to be president. She's trying to be the first female president who will be a Republican. She will do anything. She will do anything to raise herself within the party to curry the favor of, say, a Trump or whatever.
And this is why it's like so disgusting, right? Because like weaponizing anti-Semitism isn't wrong because there isn't anti-Semitism. It's wrong because there is anti-Semitism and it ought to be taken seriously. And at the same time, trying to equate anyone protesting against violence in Gaza, which is abhorrent and morally indefensible, with anti-Semitism is trying to do exactly what these conservatives have said liberals have been doing for years, which is trying to make legitimate debate seem illegitimate. And by the way, also, if we paint the entire sweep of people, from those who have legitimate questions of Israel's conduct but recognize Israel's right to exist, all the way to the world's worst and most despicable anti-Semites and bigots, if we paint that all as one group of people, how does that help us bring the people in, do the persuading we need to do to build a coalition, a bigger group of people who believe in peace and the humanity of both sides? It's so crass and cynical and gross. And the fact that these college presidents allowed themselves to be part of it, allowed themselves to become pawns in that little game was such a fucking blunder. Forget how much they fucked it up once they were in the hearing. You're right. Like the second they sat down in that room, they had lost the game. And the fact that they all had people around them, that this was allowed to proceed, that like no one was able to see to the other side of this, is a real indictment of them. And probably, by the way, means they're not up for this fucking job too. Because it's like you're a college president in fucked up roast battle America 2023.
I know. It's like, we're sorry that this is the way things are. I'm sorry that this is the way politics are. Truly, unfortunately, like you have to understand, Congress is WWE. Like you are entering a performance for, whether it's Donald Trump or Republicans or whatever, like you're entering a stage. And if you are going to act like it is an academic, like a boardroom or an academic space, it's like, oh no.
Yeah, you brought a knife to a folding chair fight.
And
nice.
The other thing is that like, they don't seem to understand that like Harvard, MIT, and Penn, like, were not mistakes or coincidences or accidents. Like those are like archetypical like paragons of like what like American higher education is and could and should be like on an international stage. And so for them to like show up in this way and like say like the students that were like training to be the elite that will run this country and the rest of the world like are share the ideology that like we can't even like espouse like coherently or like with any kind of like cogent worldview, it just like condemns the entire system of like higher education, elitism, like that. They're going after like a specific type of person.
Yeah, and by the way, on top of all of this, there are Jewish students who legitimately feel concerned that anti-Semitism is not treated in the same way as other forms of bigotry, and who want to know that they're safe on campus, and their concerns are real and valid too. And so it's like they succeeded on They succeeded on no standard. They will be awarded 0 points. It's worth noting, too, that, like, it was remarkable from, like, the first days after this conflict began, you saw a lot of Republicans try to figure out how they could exploit it for their own political advantage. And, like, that's a signal example, but I do think that it is very easy, given the way politics in America is treated, for what is happening in Israel and Gaza to be turned into another kind of narcissistic intra-American fight when it's a real conflict that affects real people. And I do think we have a tendency, especially around international stories. I mean, we do it around every kind of news to turn it into a political abstraction, but that's especially true when a conflict feels really far away. I think this has been an incredibly difficult story for us to cover on this show because A, we're a comedy show, but also be because Crooked is a place that draws a lot of people who care deeply about their values. And for a lot of people, including a lot of people that we work with at Crooked, they have a personal connection to what's happening in Israel, in Gaza, in the West Bank. One of those people is Ramzy Masri, who works at Crooked. And we had a conversation about just how much of a toll this has taken to watch unfold and to feel so connected to it and to watch it be treated with so much inhumanity. And so we wanted you to have a chance to hear from Ramzy directly about it. So, look, sometimes we succeed in proving to people that this is a comedy show. Sometimes we don't. But I think there's been no topic that I think has been harder for us to cover than what has been happening in Israel and Gaza, because obviously it's incredibly sad. It can be enraging. And also I think people have a lot of personal connection to it. And there are people who feel it not just as some political story that's playing out on the other side of the world, but people have a personal connection and they have family that have been directly impacted by it. That's true for a lot of people listening. That's true for a lot of people that work at Crooked. One of them is Ramzy Masri, who's here today. And the reason I wanted to have Ramzy on is because we talked a little bit about how hard it's been watching this unfold and feeling such a personal connection to something that is often abstracted, turned into a political cudgel, treated like any other political story unfolding. And so I just wanted everybody at home to have a chance to hear from Ramzy because I think his experience is really important. So Ramzy, hi.
Hello.
Hi. Thanks for doing this. Can you just talk a little bit about what your experience has been like over the last several weeks, watching this unfold while also having family that lives in the West Bank?
Sure. I think, to Jon's point, I think it's easy to feel like this is something that's really far away. For my family, it's every day. It's like a black cloud that follows us. And I worry every day about my aunt and uncle who live in the West Bank. It's tragic what's happening there, I think, for both peoples. I think the thing that we have to remember is that we're cousins and our fates are intertwined. So the only path forward for both of our people is through love instead of hate. And I think it's easy to identify with hate right now. I think there's a lot of reason to be angry, whether that's almost 20,000 people in Gaza dead or almost 8,000 children in Gaza dead. How many will be enough? How many will be enough to satisfy revenge or the anger of the people of either side or the people in countries far away and the way that they feel about it? For us, it's personal. And even before October 7th, my aunt and uncle were driving down the highway at night in the West Bank, and a car came up beside them and sped past them and turned sideways in the road. They had no choice but to stop. And so my aunt, she wears the hijab because she's Muslim, and they saw that. So they pulled out an AK-47, were about to mow them down. The only thing that stopped was a car, headlights on the horizon. And this was before the 7th. So imagine what they're going through now. Their neighbors are getting mowed down in the streets. They can't get access to food or medicine. And they're in the West Bank. They're not in Gaza. The scale of the humanitarian disaster there is inconceivable to Americans. And I think we try to identify with it. We try to understand what it's like. But if you can't have clean drinking water, if you don't have access to food or medicine, if your children are dying and being bombed every day, if you can't sleep because the bombs are raining down on you constantly, what kind of life is that? The Holocaust was horrible. It does not enable a new generation of violence. It doesn't make it okay to turn Gaza into a concentration camp. And that's what it is. And so I think we need to start bringing dignity to this conversation. We need to start recognizing our common humanity, and we need to say enough violence, enough torturing each other, and realize that we both have legitimate claim to the land. We do. Jews were there in biblical times and before. They have nowhere else to go. They deserve to be there. Absolutely. But so do my people. And I wish that we could start to rise above our hate. And I wish that we could start to see the ways that we're more similar than we are different.
One thing that you had said to me when we were talking about this was the ways in which being Palestinian has made you feel like a drawbridge, and that you're not always in charge of when you're up or when you're down. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, even now, I hate being on a microphone, and this isn't something I would choose to do for myself, but I want to be a voice for my culture, and it's written in my birth. I'm mixed race, so I'm half Palestinian and half American, and I think, I've been through dark periods when I've thought about ending my life, and I think the thing that keeps me here and the thing that brings me purpose is feeling like I can be a drawbridge between two cultures, between Americans and between Palestinians, because even my family overseas or Arab colleagues at other media organizations or people I know in the world think America, wrong or right, is a deeply evil place that deserves to, whatever is coming to it, whether that's in 2024 or beyond. And I don't believe that. I believe in the promise of America. My dad immigrated here and achieved the American dream. He's inspirational to me. And to leave your culture and to come to a place that's so foreign and to marry into that culture and to raise mixed race kids is so courageous, especially in the 80s. And I think because I have the ingredients for both cultures inside me and the perspectives, and I have, I practiced Ramadan as a kid, and I understand Christmas and Western traditions, and I think being able to speak to both and to teach each culture, again, that we're more similar than different. I mean, Islam means peace. The Arabs I know in my life are the most hospitable people you'll ever meet. They treat total strangers like royalty. You go to their home and they will put a giant tray of food in front of you, and when you're full, they keep feeding you, even when you say, I'm full. That is our culture, and I think Jewish culture is similar.
Yeah, the food's not as good. Well, Ramzy, thank you for being willing to come on the show. I know you hate doing this. I just want people to know that I didn't make you do this.
No. It was my choice.
Okay.
It was my choice.
And I'm really glad that you're part of Crooked. And when you see like beautiful designs on our podcast art, on a lot of the what Crooked does, merch and across everything that Crooked does, Ramzy is often the one responsible. And so we're really grateful to have your voice as a part of Crooked. And now I think I'm going to make a joke about an astronaut eating a tomato. So that has to happen too.
Cool segue.
Yeah. And as promised, perfect transition complete. More than 8 months ago, U.S. astronaut Frank Rubio was accused of eating a tomato grown in microgravity on the International Space Station after a tomato mysteriously disappeared, completely ruining the surprise of microgravity bolognese Rubio had planned for the crew. Remnants of the tomato have now been found, exonerating Rubio. Sadly, Rubio had already been given the death penalty, thwomped out the airlock while screaming and crying. Space law is pretty strict.
What do the remnants of a tomato from 8 months ago look like?
I don't know. Must have gotten under some sort of switchboard or something.
Do you think somebody ate it and they're like, oh, I found this thing. It's probably the tomato. Like, all right, man.
And finally, a California hiker was rescued after spending 7 hours trapped beneath a giant boulder estimated to weigh between 6,000 and 10,000 pounds. Thankfully, emergency responders were able to excavate the hiker from underneath your mom.
Oh.
Underneath your mom. From underneath your mom. From underneath your mom. From underneath your mom. From underneath.
Is that what you're looking for?
From underneath your mom. From underneath your mom. From underneath your mom.
I think I am still asleep.
Welcome to my dream. It's not good.
From
Sapphic
underneath your
token,
mom.
sapphic
Sapphic token. Sapphic token. Sapphic token. And that's our show. See you sluts on Saturday.
Bye, sluts.
Bye, sluts.